Hello everyone, this is Matthias. It's been a while. I'm back in Australia now. I spent 1 year in Sapporo, Hokkaido, Japan, and back in my yellow room as you can see, and I'm only here until the 30th of November, and that's when I will move to Sweden. I will make another video about that sometime in the future, but tonight I just wanted to make a quick video. It's been a while, so about basically 5 points basically which I think are essential, or at least learners of Japanese should consider them, you know, if they want to basically go far with their Japanese studies. So first point, I've just got them written down here. So first point is to see yourself actually living in Japan and participating in Japanese society. And all my points are sort of interrelated, interconnected, but just personally, to be blunt, if a person doesn't see themselves actually living in Japan and working at a Japanese company as a Japanese person and being active in the Japanese community, then I don't really see why they would study Japanese at university level, for example. For me, if someone is going to invest in $20,000 to $30,000 in their own education to get a Bachelor of Japanese Studies, then they should see themselves as one day working not necessarily for a company like Mitsubishi or Honda or Toyota, but at least a company in Japan where they can utilize basically utilize the language skills which they have and reap the benefits of the investment which they have put a lot of time and money into over their university years. So basically, and this ties into one of my later points, but I might as well move on to the next point, and realize the need to do boring study. Basically, with language learning, a lot of the words which we learn are mainly for recognition purposes. So you wouldn't use words like constitution, for example, in everyday Japanese conversation, but you need to understand that the Japanese word for constitution is kenpo, for example. And then depending on how far you want to take it, you should learn, well, it's wrong to say boring study, but you should put time into basically learning words for recognition, words that will pop up in newspapers and such, because it doesn't really matter how much Japanese you can actually speak. What will impress people more than anything basically is, first of all, being able to understand what they are saying, because even if you're great at grammar, even though you're not so bad at reading kanji, for example, if you first off can't understand what's being said to you, then that gives a pretty, it doesn't give a very flattering first impression, to say the least. So depending on your future goal, time has to be set aside for boring study, whether it be the kanji kente, which I've mentioned beforehand, or the Japanese language proficiency test level 1. There are several exams out there, but yeah, boring study needs to be done, unfortunately. Number 3, try to understand how Japanese people think. If Japanese people do not feel that you understand how they think, how they view the world, then they will not accept you beyond the level of a guest, basically. As we all know, you have uchi and soto, and so inside and out, you could say, in Japanese relations. If you constantly act as if you were in your own country, if you speak Japanese as if you were speaking English, and you act in this, you know, how you would in Australia or England or wherever, you will be kept in this soto area. But if you try to act Japanese by basically being humble when you speak Japanese, like if someone says, "Oh, you're good at Japanese," and you say, "No, no, 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 no," then that will bring you closer to this uchi area. And if you, for example, understand that above all, the Japanese like to maintain group harmony. If you basically don't make any outrageous statements or any statements which will cause the listener to feel uncomfortable, then Japanese people feel more willing basically to let you in, and the chances of them treating you as someone who's close to them as opposed to an unwelcome guest will increase, absolutely. Number 3, I have to look at the computer for a bit. So realize that you won't become fluent within 6 months. You basically have to ask yourself how fluent you want to become, and essentially there's a reason why only a select few stand out with their Japanese skills, as in people who become ambassadors for their country to Japan, for example. There's a reason why, because they put in a lot more work than the majority. And it doesn't just apply to Japanese. There's a reason why the top 10% in the university subject are in the top 10%, because they normally have put in much more work than the other 90%. That applies to Japanese as well. So someone who puts in 6 hours of study a day into Japanese, whether it be listening to music, reading newspapers, learning how to write kanji, the probability of them going further in life and being able to utilize their Japanese skills more effectively than someone who just puts in 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day is still good, but anyway, are definitely higher than, you know, the person who's not doing as much study. So it's a bit of a Japanese way of thinking, I guess, but it all depends on how much of yourself you are willing to sacrifice. And next is ask yourself why you are studying Japanese, because well, why you originally started studying, and essentially what is your end goal? Is your end goal to be able to survive in Japan just by communicating on a everyday conversation level, or do you want to marry a Japanese person and be a housewife, for example, or yeah, houseman maybe in the future, or do you want to move there and work as a Japanese person in a Japanese company, or do you want to become an academic or something like that? You know, your goals will determine what kind of study you have to do. If you just want to go to Japan and be able to survive and, you know, talking to normal people there, or local people there, you know, you might want to put more time into recognition and recognition in terms of vocab, which is currently in use nowadays, and reading books about Japanese psychology and just how the way people think and things like that. But basically, if you want to go into business, for example, you have to have very good interpersonal skills. You have to understand more how Japanese people think. A lot of these, you know, even if you want to do this or this or this or that, what you need to do is basically issho, as you say in Japanese. Yeah, well, issho, you guys all know what that means. But anyway, if you want to become a business leader, you have to understand not only Japanese way of thinking, but Japanese business manner, which is a totally different thing. There's even an exam for it, the BJT. You can look it up. It's only in Japan, I think. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, if you want to become an academic, like I'm thinking of becoming at the moment, you have to do the boring study I mentioned before. You have to do a lot more of that. Just all these words which seem obsolete and such, just this knowledge that you have to have of the Japanese language itself is different. So that's why when I was in Japan, I did a lot of, you could say, boring test study, but that's because my end goal is different to the person next to me who wants to work in a Japanese company. So basically, we all have different paths, and there's a different path to each end goal. And yes, so in conclusion, basically, one's success depends on how much time and effort that person is willing to invest into learning Japanese. So I hope I haven't spoken for too long, and as I've mentioned before, my videos aren't really for entertainment purposes, but I don't want to sound like a preacher, even though I probably do. Oh well. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I know my videos aren't that entertaining, but if you did get something out of this, or if you have any suggestions, just yeah, drop something down below. And I might make a new video sometime in the future, we'll see. But yeah, everyone have a good day. Bye bye.